Hello, Dijon here. In the animation portion of episode 133 of the Mustardcast, we go over what cartoons we've been watching lately, discuss why studios refuse to take risks with adult animation, review season 2 of Dan to Dan, and review the Demon Slayer Infinity Castle movie. Please enjoy. But we like to start our podcast just talking about what cartoons we've been watching lately. So Aiara, why don't you start, and then Natasha can go after you.
So, of course, there's the movie that we will name later, but we'll get to that later.
Secret movie.
I've been great movie. I've caught up on or I'm almost caught up on that one Yuri anime. It's like There's No Freaking Way, I'll Be Your Lover or whatever. And also started reading. Well, that's not. I forgot where I was going with that. I've caught up on that. The last season episode came out last week, and I'm kind of scared to watch it because I'm gonna miss it while it's gone. Hopefully we get a season 2. That would be fantastic. I feel like there was something I was watching. Oh, I'm doing a rewatch of Noragami, so I can actually like read the manga proper this time. It's been a really, really long time since I've even thought about Noragami in any capacity, but I kind of missed it. I used to have a side blog on Tumblr, not to show my age, but side blog on Tumblr. I was really big into it when I was in middle school, and I kind of miss it. So, and the manga ended recently, so I'm like, if I watch the anime and just pick up on where I left off, in the anime, in the manga, it'll be easier to finally get through and see the end. Which I've been wanting to do for a while. Finished my yearly rewatch of Sword Art Online, and it was just as bad as I remember it being. But fun. I'm debating on whether or not I'm gonna watch Alfheim this year. Usually I do, but I don't have the bandwidth to deal with Oberon and his shenanigans and all that. I don't know. Alfheim is like really bad. Like Sword Art is already bad itself, but like Alfheim is like an extra special kind of bad, and I don't think I don't want I don't think I want to deal with that.
But yeah, go ahead and talk about what you've been watching.
So let's see. I've really been in it. I've really been in it lately. So recently, I have completed. Let's see here. Dandadan season 2. I wrapped that up. I've also wrapped up, or in the process of wrapping up Kaiju number 8 season 2. I think it has one more episode before season 2 comes to an end.
Which I didn't know that was out because I watched the first season. Now season 2's out, and I'm like, damn, why didn't I know this? And now I'm behind, and I hate being behind. And once I fall behind, I tend to just not watch something. So I'm now trying to decide whether or not I care to watch it because the manga finished recently. I read the manga, and I'm like, I don't know if I liked season 1 of the show enough to keep watching it. So I might drop Kaiju number 8. Not because I dislike it, but just because I read the manga and the anime is cool, but it's not so good that I'm like, I gotta watch the manga too. Watch the anime too.
And because I've had so many people recommend it to me, I am looking forward to starting the summer Hashiru died, I believe is what it's called. And I'm also right now really enjoying the like cyberpunk dystopian anime called like uh Gachi Yakuza. Sorry for the mispronunciation. It's a very popular anime right now. People are raving about it online, at least on my part of the internet. And one thing that people are bringing up, they're like, women tend to write some of the best, like anime. And so the fact that the creator of Gachi Yakuza is a woman was not surprising to a lot of people.
I mean, look at Full Metal Alchemist is one of the best to ever do it. It is the most well-made manga and anime with Brotherhood, where it's such a tight story. It's not too long, but it has a good amount of length to it, and then it also is just a tight story that's perfect. There's no fat on that story. It's just a good story, and that's a story by a woman, and that show's perfect. So I get it.
But
Yeah, that's
there is so much truth to it because like you had said, like Brotherhood is one of the it was one of my first and like still one of the best animes I've ever watched. And if you're watching this, coworker who will not be named, Brotherhood is better than the 2006 anime.
Whoa.
You know who you are.
I also have a friend who believes staunchly that the original is better, and they like refuse to finish watching Brotherhood, and like, get your life together, okay? Grow up.
Right, you're just
and
wrong
recognize that you're
objectively.
wrong.
Grow up, exactly.
So for me, outside of Dan, I've not been watching a lot of anime, despite the fact there's a lot of anime airing right now that I would like to watch. I'm not subscribed to Crunchyroll at the moment, and I'm probably gonna subscribe to Crunchyroll again soon with some shows that are coming out in the fall and winter. So I'll probably start watching a lot of the shows I've um been falling behind on. But I've been watching some more American cartoons, watching Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon I grew up with. I rewatched it recently. There's a reaction YouTube channel I subscribe to on YouTube, and I subscribe to their Patreon. And I do full length reactions with them where I watch it alongside them. I find that really enjoyable, and I've been doing that with Avengers, as well as Batman Beyond. And actually, I lied. There is another anime I'm watching. I'm watching One Piece with them. I decided, despite not being caught up on One Piece, to rewatch One Piece from the beginning and to watch one episode every week because I'm a maniac. Um, and I'm at the beginning of the Arlong Park arc, which is a really fun arc. I love One Piece. One Piece is good. I started to my love of One Piece started to wane because I One Piece has gone on for too long. It needs to end. Um, and I think the longer it goes on, the less I like it. But rewatching it from the beginning, I'm being reminded why I like it, and I'm like, okay, One Piece is good. Let me not let let me not let it be tainted by current One Piece. I think pre-time skip One Piece is peak, but everything after is good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as good to me.
Yeah, One Piece is one of those shows for me where, I remember One Piece when it was like Saturday morning cartoons, which I know I'm aging myself with that, but I'm totally okay with that. I enjoyed One Piece when I was younger, but as I got older, I kind of just fell off of it. And part of that was the fact that One Piece is just a very long series. Like it's very long. And the other part for me that I just couldn't really get behind is, the One Piece art style is really not my favorite. It's like it's really not my favorite. And so I never had a hard desire to go back and watch it the way other people have had. But I understand why people enjoy it. I understand why people like it. It's just for those two reasons there, it's just kind of not my jam.
Yeah, it's not for a decent amount of people. I like it. I don't think there's ever been a point in time when I disliked it, especially since I watched it when I was younger. So it's kind of just been with me my entire life. But like, yeah, I definitely get some people not liking it. It's the same way with some American comic art styles where it's just like it's different, and some people don't like it. There are some artists that just draw in such a specific way that isn't like anybody else. Like Oda's art style is not like anybody else's. He takes a lot more inspiration from some Western art styles in his, and that's just not for everybody when it comes to anime, especially. I also, you know what? I'm speaking on the art style. I actually don't like the art style as much now as I used to. I think when you read and watch these stories, the art styles evolve over time. Sometimes not for the better. I think people like Taikubo and Kishimoto, Naruto, and Bleach, their art styles changed a lot over the course of those manga. And it's not that they started bad, but they started in a very particular way. There's some people who like those earlier art styles, and some people like their later art styles. I like both when it comes to both of them. Um, with One Piece, I prefer the way it used to look, and the way it looks now isn't bad by any means, but it is different, and I don't like it as much. Especially it's in the anime, especially the anime kind of women in One Piece are built strange, and it's very exaggerated in a cartoony way that I'm not a fan of. But earlier on, it's not that bad. It's not as bad as it becomes, and it gets real bad. Especially the anime. I think in the manga, it's actually still again strange, but that's kind of just his art style. But the anime kind of takes it further. So so any weird body shape on a woman you see in anime, it's honestly not as bad in the manga. They in the anime they decide to, for the sake of I guess the you know being able to draw it easily, um, they change it in a way that makes it look very interesting to say the least. That I'm not the biggest fan of.
Yeah, so again, on my like piece of the internet, that is a point that I've heard fans of One Piece make, where they're like, the women in the anime, their body parts and everything are like very amplified and exaggerated in a way that is not true in the manga. And that has been like, a critique, I would say, of the anime. Not like a major critique, but it's something that people discuss.
But I would say if you ever decide to get back into it, they're remaking it. So they're going to do it again from the beginning, but cut out all of the filler. So they're probably going to get through it a lot faster with the remake. So you might as well just wait for that.
Not gonna happen.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Sorry. I'm sorry. It's just, yeah, it's not going to happen for me. There are so many other shows to watch. There's so much like good content and media in this like global world we live in, that I'm kind of like, if I'm not feeling a show or something, on to the next.
But yeah, moving on to some trailers and news, starting with we're probably gonna talk about a lot of stuff that you haven't seen, Natasha, because I sent all of this to Aiara in a Discord channel we have for the Muscats. But feel free to like Google it and like watch some of these trailers in the background if you feel the need to. But we're gonna start with the Black Knight by Gendy Tartakovsky. He shared a test animation clip from his new film. I saw it on Twitter and Instagram, and on Instagram he posted it with the caption, "Well, this might get me in trouble, but gotta try a new strategy. About 6 years ago, we started development on a more adult animated action movie, The Black Knight. We developed it for a few years. The studio liked what we were doing, but they were unsure if there was an audience that would go see it theatrically. We made a down and dirty test and still no go. So to try something different, I thought I would share the test to see if it can get a groundswell of excitement that would change the studio's mind. I won't share the details of the story except for one element. Excuse me. Our knight armor is 20 feet high and controlled by a knight inside using ropes, pulleys, and levers. The setting is around the 14th century. And that's all Gindi wrote. And in the test footage, it is a giant, like he said, 20-foot high suit of armor fighting a ninja. And it was really cool. And supposedly the studio he may be referring to is Sony Animation. And if anybody doesn't know who Genndy Tartakovsky is, he is the mind behind Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, Symbiotic Titan, and most recently Primal and Unicorn Warriors Eternal on Adult Swim. But not most famously for him, but the thing that probably has made the most money that he made, or was like a lead on the project of, is the Hotel Transylvania series of movies. Which, if I'm not mistaken, that's Sony, right? um, so this man who made them a lot of money with this very popular animated project, he has another idea, and they're like, nah, I don't think people would like this. And then he posted, and everybody's like, no, we like this. We like this guy, and we trust this guy. He makes good stuff. You release it, it's people are gonna like it. It's about advertising. It's also adult, and that's the big thing that I think that's holding it back for Sony. I feel like studios think that the audience for adult animation is small, but every time a really good animated movie comes out, they're proven wrong. Also, the entirety of anime proves them wrong. It's just that there aren't many, especially Western animated movies made specifically for adults, because the money and time required for them are considered better spent on the guaranteed audience of children that animation is perceived to only be for. If time and money was spent on changing the general audience's perception of what animated stories can be, I think that studios would be likely to make more money in the long run. But they don't want that, or care really about pushing the artistic medium of animation forward. They just want easy money, guaranteed money. But what are your guys' thoughts?
It's like what you said about the marketing, I think is really, really true, because like this is effective marketing. I would watch this. Doubly so because it kind of has that like element of like, ooh, I'm not supposed to show you this, but I'm showing you anyway. And I think if, especially for marketing adult animation, if they lean into that kind of thing, like, ooh, this is a whole like thing, like get the intrigue and the mystery up, I think that'd be really, really successful. But also, I'm very biased because I'll watch anything that Gennady Tarkovsky makes because I think Samurai Jack is one of the greatest cartoons to ever exist. So,
I was also just going to add that one Samurai Jack, yes, absolutely, like it's chef's kiss. But
mhm.
in terms of like talking about the marketing, I was going to add that I think companies, and I'm not justifying this, but I think companies look at like marketing towards kids as like a long-term return on investment. Because
Oh, true.
if you like air quotes get, but if you um get your brand associated with someone's childhood and that nostalgia, that carries them throughout life and they will be customers for like 50 plus years, whereas like people who are already in their 30s, will be customers or customers for maybe like 4 more decades. Not to sound like sad, but like so I think it's also about like what's the long term return on investment, and that's how they
Investment,
decide
yeah.
where they want to market. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
no,
makes a bunch of sense. Definitely so because like it's really easy to market to kids. Like
yeah, no, for sure.
and so like you get a bigger return on that investment in marketing without nearly as much expended effort. And it's unfortunate
Mhm.
because it's like adults are worth marketing towards too. We like stuff.
Yeah, and it's just like, the whole conversation about like what's the term? Like I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like josei anime, which is geared towards like
Mm,
older women. And people have had conversations where they're like there aren't a lot of like anime geared towards older women, yada yada. And the counter is always like, "Oh, well, that anime doesn't make any money." And I'm like, "Well, what do we mean when we say it doesn't make any money?" Like maybe it's not making
right.
like shonen money, right? Like, which is, I
And
think I can
then
get behind that.
And there's
Go ahead.
also a
that's
Sorry.
like,
conversation to be
no,
had
you're good.
about,
Like,
like we've talked before about both Josei and what's the male equivalent? I forget. But stuff like
I forgot to.
Tokyo Ghoul and Berserk. I forget what that genre is called. But the older adult male space as well. Whereas like it's also a matter
Mhm.
of, for that space in particular, it's also like, why does adult equal dark depressing? Like shonen is really
Right.
shonen is really popular because it is a very broad style of storytelling that people enjoy. It's action, comedy, and a bit of drama. Everybody likes that. Those are like the most popular things. Sometimes with a bit romance sprinkled in, which we'll talk about later with Dandadan. But like people want those style of stories, but aimed towards adults with like adult content and language and situations. We don't
Mhm.
necessarily need the like hyper romance of Josei or the hyper violence of um the male equivalent of that. Like they could just give us shonen, but for adults. And if they want the money side of
Yeah.
things, because yeah, that is more popular with everyone, not just kids, also adults.
I think the reason like josei, and I think the term is like seinen
That is
anime,
it. Yeah, same.
Mm-mm.
tend yeah, tend to be a little bit darker, is because I feel like as an adult, when you look back on your youth, for the most part, we can look at it with like rose colored glasses on almost. Whereas like transitioning into adulthood, it's almost like, again, not to be dark here, but realistically, I think for some people it's almost like, okay, this is it. All I do is go to work, clock in, clock out, go home, eat dinner, go to sleep, and maybe they don't feel so great about their lives. And so I think the topics that are covered are the topics that are covered in Josei and Seinen versus like shonen. The difference is just like how people actually feel about their adult lives, um, and the reality break that does occur when you transition from being a kid to having to be a functioning adult in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely like there's room for those stories. There's room for those darker stories. There's room
Mhm.
for those quote unquote adult stories. But the reality is,
Mhm.
like you said, they aren't doing as well as shonen because the adults are also watching shonen. Like
Yeah.
that's the popular thing. That's the thing that most people like. So it's like, yeah, you can still give us adult content within that genre. That genre doesn't just have to mean boys, because it already doesn't just mean boys. It's, of course, a bunch of people,
Right.
femme identifying people watch shonen anime, and then of course the adults. So
I was
it's
just saying,
like this is meant
there's
to
like,
be that Gendy's working on. It's meant to be. You look at the art style; it very much is the style of art style that he works in a lot of his projects, which. Just from the outside looking in, not knowing that this is supposed to be more adult oriented, you would assume it's for kids. But it's not necessarily, like he's saying. This is meant to be more adult. Like the last two projects he made, on Adult Swim were that more higher rated, adult rated things with a lot more violence.
Mhm.
Some bit more mature themes with Unicorn Warriors Eternal and Primal especially, which is about a caveman and a dinosaur, fighting through
Mhm.
ancient times, and there's a lot of blood and violence in that. And you could very much you could tell those stories and I think make money, because the I think the big problem here is especially in the West, especially removing anime from that, because anime is different, because they actually, even though they still have the problem we just talked about, at least they recognize that adult watch cartoons. Over here they think that, oh no, cartoons are just for kids, and we can't even use that medium to tell stories for adults. Like, can you guys name any movie made in the West that is 100% like this is an animated movie and it's for adults?
Um,
The first thing that
in
comes to
the
my mind,
West.
unfortunately, is Sausage Party, which is
oh
insane. And
yeah,
that is
and that's
also
the precedent we've
yeah,
set.
that's a conversation to be had, because adult animated cartoons are like that. They're like, okay, it's adult animated cartoon. Now it's going to be this weird, gross comedy. That's
Raunchy, yeah,
that's
like,
what adult cartoons are in the West.
and it's like, I know there's that like parodying of like, oh, sex sells, but like it doesn't it doesn't have to be like that. Sometimes I want to watch like an animated movie with an actual plot, and it's not just like dirty jokes the whole time, because like
Mhm.
as an adult I am multifaceted, and it's like it's insane that like we have set this precedent of like, oh, adult animation has to be like, raunchy or else it won't sell, because it's like, it's frustrating, because it's like adult animation stuff will come out and I'm like, oh, I'd like to watch that, and then it sucks because they lean too heavily into trying to be dirty and being like, haha, eyebrows raised, but it's like, it's not fun. It's quite boring actually.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think the easiest way to kind of, make animation that is clearly geared towards adults without even have to like go dark or dramatic like we usually see, is literally just to make the characters older. And I think
Mm.
Exactly. I
Jujutsu
say that all
Kaisen,
the
which
time.
yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, yeah, just like make the characters older. And Jujutsu Kaisen is like one of those shows where I will still have people tell me like it's shonen, and I'm like, is it though? And even if it, I mean, even if it, however people, whatever category people want to put it in, what one thing that makes Jujutsu Kaisen appealing is the fact that you do have these high school characters, but you also have characters who are like in their late 20s and 30s, characters like Nanami
Hmm.
who are just like, man, I just want a vacation. It's like relatable, Nanami, relatable,
Yeah, like Gojo is like
Right.
28.
Mm-hmm.
But Gojo's also a crash out, so I don't know about him.
Yeah, but yeah, you also have like there's some things that blur the line. Like there's Attack on Titan, which starts off being about teenagers until there's time skip and they're older. But that is that's a shonen, but it's that borderlines on seinen in terms of its like storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Um and like, yeah,
Yeah.
you have things like that like that is put into the magazines of a specific genre, but kind of borderline becomes something different, like Jujutsu Kaisen and Attack on Titan. And like, yeah, just
Mhm.
making them older. I've said it before in and this is going to borderline on some things that we're going to talk about with Dan, but like in terms of like over sexualization in anime, um and how it's weird and it shouldn't be done. Like we had a brief conversation, me and you, Natasha, about how It's not that sexualization itself is bad. That's fine. It's a thing. Like Aiera just said, sex sells to an extent. Like we're like there are some weird people out there who are just Puritans who don't want it in anything. But to an extent, it's like it's okay that it exists in things, and it's okay to sometimes. I think sexualize a character. It's overdone, and it's of course aimed at the femme characters. It needs to be equal opportunity, and it needs to be not done as much and as heavily. And it's less weird when the characters are adults, obviously, because unfortunately, shonen anime, the
Yeah.
most popular genre of anime, does it all the time, and the characters are always teenagers, and people need to be in jail.
Mhm.
Um, it's weird.
hmm
It's very weird. There's a lot of people out there who need to be in jail because of because of the stuff they put in those books,
For sure.
and just simply making them like college students would, even if they were to still do it at the same level that they're doing it now, make it a little less weird. But of course, they still shouldn't be doing it at the level that they're doing it now. Like the pervert character, that trope
Yeah, no.
should be dead and buried. And
Needs
I have
to
an idea
die.
of how to like begin the start of that. And the idea is to kill Master Roshi. Master Roshi's a character that's got to go.
Mm,
Oh yeah, he gotta go.
I don't know why he's
he
still alive.
has to go.
You know the crazy thing though? I want to kill him, but then I also want them to make a spin-off about him when he was younger. Which I feel like
Both those things can coexist, I fear.
because I feel like you tell a story about him when he's younger and have him be less of a pervert when he's younger.
Mm.
And have it be like as he got older, he became
Yeah,
like
it's like
he cared less when he got older, but when he was younger, he was like trying to be a bit more suave about it instead of being creepy. Like he was Sanji when he was younger, and then he became
Right.
then he became Brook when he was older.
So the speaking of like just like again like fan service and the pervert and objectification in anime and whatnot, that is one reason why I could not get behind Fire Force. I
oh
quit after
god,
season
yeah.
1. I was done. I was like, this is too much. I've been watching anime for a long time, so I am used to like the male gaze and like a certain amount of fan service. I am accustomed to it, but oh my gosh, can we please get a break?
And the thing is, after
That
watching it and
where
then
it's like she gets her powers from taking her clothes off. It's
yeah.
insane.
And then after I dropped it and I had got my like cousin had got me the first volume of Soul Eater, which is by the same person, for my birthday. And I was reading it, and I think you've I think it was maybe you, or maybe I'm mistaken for somebody else, but like you like recently had rewatched Soul Eater, I think, not too long ago, or at least maybe not super recently, but
it was
more
me.
definitely
It was me. I do it at least once every year.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've read the manga, but I feel like the perverted stuff is like 10 times worse in the manga, or maybe I'm just misremembering how bad it is in the anime. Because I know it's there, and I know there's some weird stuff with manga in the anime.
You're not.
But it seems like it's worse in the manga. And that lets me, that there's like, oh,
it's so much worse.
The signs were there. The signs were there for this author.
And it's like, that's what really like impact. Like I love Soul Eater as a concept. It's so the world is so cool, and like that's why it was one of my first, and so I have like a very fond nostalgia for it. But God, if it is one of those animes where you have to like watch it in a closed room with
headphones on,
with your door closed, and nobody else in the house, like. And I hate that I have to watch it like that because
you got to watch it in a sensory deprivation team.
Right. Like, I'm watching it because this world building is super cool. I do not want to see the upskirts of the teenage girl, exactly. I fear. And if I could skip past them, I would. However, they always happen during, like, the fight scenes, the stuff that I'm here for. And I'm like, all right.
We need a non-pervert edit. Which, by the way, Soul Eater is well deserving of a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood style remake that actually does the manga justice, minus everything we were just talking about. Because the anime didn't even tell the full story. But moving on, because we got to move on, and we'll circle back around to this with Dan. But next I have Star Wars Visions Volume 3. This is the third season of Star Wars Visions, which is an animated anthology series where a bunch of different animation studios from across the planet tell stories within the world of Star Wars, but unrestricted by like canon, so it doesn't have to fit within the actual storyline of the movies or shows or anything. And this season will be completely anime focused. The first season was a mix. The second season had a lot less anime, and this season they're deciding to go full on anime. And a bunch of anime studios are taking the reign. Um, some returning from the first season, and some new ones. And we'll even be getting a bunch of sequel episodes to episodes from the first season, the more popular ones. Um, like, for example, The Ninth Jedi, which will not just be getting a sequel episode, but we'll be getting a full on spin off series, as revealed at Star Wars Celebration Japan earlier this year. The Ninth Jedi was easily the best episode of the first season, and I'm really excited to get more of it. I definitely suggest checking out at the very least the Ninth Jedi episodes, but because none of it's connected, except for the few episodes I just mentioned. But you can just check out whatever episode you want, whichever one calls to you, whichever one interests you, just watch that one. But also, seeing as you guys are big on anime, I feel like this next season would interest you guys the most. If you just want to see like Star Wars but anime, watch Star Wars Visions.
Bet.
I might have to check it out. I'm not like I mean, during the pandemic, I did like watch like anything and all things related to Star Wars that I could get my hands on. But I'm not like a diehard fan of Star Wars, honestly. But maybe this will make me check it out more.
Yeah, definitely.
Say, I grew up a Trekkie, so I'm like, that avoidance of Star Wars is
Got
deep in my
prejudice.
DNA. But I probably will check this out. Yes, the prejudice.
Glove
I
shit or
still think
racism.
Star Trek is better, but exactly.
Next we have Virgin Punk Clockwork Girl. So this is an anime that I've been keeping my eye on since the first trailer because the action animation looks sick as hell, and the story sounds interesting. The year is 2099. Humanity has advanced, overcoming all injuries and illnesses with the development of the medical android technology, Sameda. However, along with the development of, I don't know how to pronounce this properly. I'm going to say Somadea. Crimes misusing said technology have rapidly increased. Somadea grants physical abilities far superior to those of normal flesh and blood, and by illegally modifying it, Somadea can be misused for criminal purposes. To deal with these Somadea crimes, the government established the bounty hunter system. Civilians registered as bounty hunters are permitted to kill illegal Somadea users, designated as wanted criminals by the police. In return, they are rewarded with large amounts of bounty money. In this unforgiving world, Ubu Kamigori makes a living hunting down criminals as a bounty hunter. But one day, when she returns home from a job, she finds a man. She finds the man with whom she has a sordid history waiting there, Mr. Elegance. And so her destiny begins to unravel. A tale woven by mechanical girls and the smell of gunpowder smoke. This suspenseful action begins. So yeah, it's a cyberpunk world. Very similar to Cyberpunk 2077 in a lot of ways, in the sense that people are modifying themselves with technology, and everybody's a cyborg, and that's just become a regular part of society. And I love those types of stories. I love Cyberpunk 2077, the video game, and Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Which have you seen that, Nat? I know you watched it. Hey, I know you finished it, but
I did not. I'm sorry.
you should watch it. It's good. You'll like it. I think you'll like it based on everything we've been talking about. Yeah, and I played a video game. The video game's great. And yeah, this is giving it's a very classic anime tale of a highly advanced robot woman who kicks ass, similar to something like Ghost in the Shell or Alita Battle Angel. And I just love those kinds of stories. They're fun. What are your thoughts, Aiara?
You know what else this kind of reminds me, art style wise and premise wise, of Claymore a lot. But like if Claymore was in a cyberpunk society rather than a medieval society.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about Claymore. I love Claymore, but the anime left a lot to be desired. So I think this is going to like scratch that Claymore shaped itch that I've been having, because like the manga is really great, the anime is so bad, and it makes me so sad because Claymore has such a good story.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So I'm like, hopefully this will fill that hole in my heart.
Next we have JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Steel Ball Run. It got a proper trailer, and not just a teaser image like we talked about in the last episode. It has a March 2026 release date, but a tentative release date of March 26th was leaked via some like Netflix files. So I have my potential deadline to finish Stone Ocean because I didn't finish the last season. uh, because I was in a weird place at the time. JoJo was one of the many anime that I binged over the pandemic, but by the time part 6 came out on Netflix, I was starting to get tired of binging things, and I was craving weekly
Mm.
releases. But part 6 was the beginning of the Netflix era of JoJo, and they started, to release it in the binge model that they do, but they did it in 2 parts. And I watched most of part 1, I think maybe, give or take like 1 or 2 episodes. Um, but didn't finish it. And by the time part 2 came out, I kind of just fell off. Not because I didn't like it, but because I just didn't feel like binging it. Nowadays though, I have a weekly TV schedule, and I'm thinking of like just designing a calendar for it just for fun. And to maybe use it as a way to talk about it on the podcast in the future. And I'll probably be adding JoJo to it. And watching an episode or two a week until I'm caught up. But I don't remember everything from what I did watch, and I don't want to rewatch those episodes. So I'm going to instead read up to where I left off, the opposite of what you're doing, Aiara. Then watch it from there. Um, Also, because
Mhm.
every other anime on Netflix releases weekly, now they do that. I'm hoping that they're going to start doing that with JoJo
Okay.
part 7, because literally every anime that they release now is weekly. So hopefully they do that with JoJo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
Yeah.
I will
Oh,
say,
sorry.
okay.
I was going to
I was
ask
just gonna
as
ask, like,
go
so
ahead.
what do you? I was gonna ask, so what do you all really enjoy about JoJo's Bizarre World? Because I will admit, I don't want to come off like a hater. I tried getting into it and I just couldn't. I have friends who watch it, but it was not my. It just wasn't my cup of tea, and I really tried.
It is bizarre. It's in the
I think
name.
for me,
It is very strange. Go ahead.
for me, long time JoJo fan, not so much anymore. Trigun has kind of taken over that, but I have the Joestar birthmark as a tattoo. Like I was, and I think the thing that really like drew me into it was that it was like every part is different. So it's like if you don't particularly care for a part, that's fine because the next part might have something for you. So I liked parts 1, 2, and 3. Did not enjoy part 4 as much. That's fine because part 5 was something completely different. Although in getting older and like in kind of like, dipping my toe back into JoJo land every once in a while for the nostalgia's sake, I dog on part 4 too much. It's actually really good. It's just
I like part 4.
because it's like small town murder mystery, and yeah, like
It's
it's
just that it
because it's
takes a
not like
while.
everything else.
It does kind of take a while to get going. Whereas I feel like the
Yeah,
first 3 parts get to the main thing
it's
immediately.
like first episode we're in it.
Whereas like halfway
Yeah,
through part 4 is when they start getting into the murder mystery stuff.
right. And it's like I think that the fact that it's just like it's a very versatile anime. So it's like you'll find something that you like in there.
It's
And I
also
say that with a grain of salt though, also because part 6 was what kind of turned me off of it in reading the manga.
it's also very episodic. Like stories tend to,
Yeah.
for the most part, be contained to a single
Very villain of
episode.
the week.
Yeah, but I feel like something that people, and there's a reason why a lot of people don't enjoy it. I think a lot of people don't realize just how old JoJo actually is. Because it didn't get a proper anime
Mm-hmm.
adaptation until what, 2014 was when that first season started. Because of that,
Yep.
people perceive it to be newer than it actually is. JoJo, I believe, might hold the record for the longest
It's from the
ongoing
90s.
manga. It started in the 80s. It was in the era of
Oh yeah.
Dragon Ball and what's that really popular anime about buff people? It's because it's in that same era. I forget,
Baki?
not Baki. Dang,
Fist of the North
Fist of the
Star.
North Star. It's of that generation of anime. It's as old as Fist of the North Star.
In fact, it takes inspiration directly from Fist of the North Star.
Yeah, a lot of people don't
Or at
realize
least
that.
part 1 does.
So,
Yeah.
like, you read it, it has that energy. It has that 80s action anime energy, and that's not for everybody. I find it really fun. I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I especially like part 2. Part 2 is really fun. Joseph is just ridiculous, and his thing of just being able,
Fascinating little critter.
just being able to predict things is really fun. And like, yeah, if you don't like a part, even though I will never suggest to just off top skip the first 2 parts. I don't like when people do that. I don't like when people tell people to skip part 1 and 2. First off, they're really short. They're
Yeah.
both jammed into one season. That's how short they are. The parts one
Decent.
and one and two combined are significantly shorter than the entirety of part three. Like they're such a
Mm-hmm.
breeze if you want to watch it from the beginning. But if ultimately you watch those parts and decide you don't like either of them, you can skip the part three, which is tends to be most people's favorite part. Um, part two is my favorite.
Yeah.
I do like part three. Part three is probably a close second. I like part six. I haven't finished it, so I can't really say much. I do understand why for some people it's weaker. But like I
It's because
think
it's a
starting
girl JoJo. They
this,
JK,
yeah,
JK.
I mean probably, but also starting with part seven, it is like literally a reboot, which is funny. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you could legitimately start with part seven when it comes out if you want to give it a shot again,
You could. A lot of people do.
because it is
Maybe
literally a
I'll give
reboot.
it another try. No, you're good. I'm sorry.
That's
I
fine.
feel like my timing's so off. My bad. I was gonna say maybe I'll give it another shot now that I have like this extra context and everything. It's just like when I tried watching it the first time, I was like, like the humor is not getting to me. The plot is like a bit too, or the story it was like a bit too much. But I don't know. I am always willing to give a series at least one more chance. So I will give maybe I'll give JoJo's Bizarre World another chance.
So last in just the trailers
Okay.
and news, I have Ranma One Half Season Two. Speaking of Netflix anime, we got a trailer for season two. Um, and Rama was a show that I had always wanted to get around to watching. So when the remake was announced, like the summer before it came out in the fall, I was very excited and watched the first season as it aired, and it was great. It was animated by Mappa, and they did an incredible job. They're overworked, but they get the job done. Um, the show is dated
Yeah.
in some very specific ways, in terms of some old school creepy perverted jokes, but also it's a byproduct of its time, because this is also another one of those like OG manga. Like this is 87, I think, is when it first came out. Um and
Yeah.
I believe like Rama One Half is directly responsible for um anime blowing up in the West specifically. Like Rama One Half has a very storied history. But for people watching who may not know, the story revolves around a teenager named Rama Saltame, who has trained in martial arts since early childhood. And as a result of an accident during a training journey, he is cursed to become a girl when exposed to cold water, while hot water changes him back into a boy. Um, Rama is arranged to marry Akane Tendo of Anything Goes Karate by their fathers so that he can carry on the dojo, but they both dislike the arrangement, and that results in a bunch of action comedy shenanigans and a bit of will they won't they romance. And this was airing around the same time as Dandadan season one in late 2024. So it was fun to see what is essentially Dandadan's predecessor at the same time as Dandadan. Um, but yeah, either of you have
Mhm.
any history with Rama One Half? I know I talked about you with it previously while I was airing Aiara, but how about you now?
So yes, I do have a history of Rama One Half. I used to be like a hardcore fangirl of the show. I'm talking like, um, what time period was this? Probably like the early 2000s, maybe some of the 2010s when I had initially started watching it. And of course, I'm referencing the, OG
Yeah,
anime,
yeah.
the with the grainy, kind of like grainy lines and everything. I enjoyed Rama One Half. I think the reason I stopped watching it is one, it was taking a while, and at that time I was very impatient. But two, kind of the criticisms that the show has gotten, as you have like a man who like is turning into a woman, and then there's like some fan service stuff that I wasn't cool with. So I do enjoy the show. I am glad that it's getting a remake, or has it. But I will also say that I think there are other shows that are more deserving. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. It's such an iconic show that is so directly responsible for anime being what it is today. That it's just hard for me to agree with that, because it's just like when I started looking up like how like what Rama did for anime in the West, I was like, okay, that's kind of crazy. I didn't realize this, because to me it was always just that's that one like rom com anime, and then I was like, oh, it also is like one of the very first anime that Viz Media like translated to English. Like what? And got really popular when it first came out. And I was like, this is insane. I didn't realize Ranma 1/2 is like that significant of a show in terms of its like influence. So I understand why it's getting a remake. Also, it's the creative Inuyasha. Speaking of which, ladies making incredible manga. Inuyasha, which Inuyasha has one of the most egregious
Very true.
examples of a pervert in anime known to man. I remember one time I completely forgot how bad he was. I can't remember his name at the Moroku. And somebody was like, "Oh man, Moroku sucks." And I was like, "Moroku, what did Moroku do?" And then it reminded me. I was like, "Oh, I forgot Moroku was that bad. Moroku was a problem. Moroku needs to go to jail. Like Moroku was wild."
Yeah.
Despite Moroku, though, Inuyasha is great. I still, to this day, have not finished it. I've not watched the last season. I've watched everything except the last season. And it's insane.
So
I don't
if
know
you
why.
would, I'm not gonna say spoil it for you, but um since we're talking about like Rumble 1/2 and like perverts and that sort of thing, and which I agree, I do understand what you're saying about Rumble 1/2 and how it did a lot for the West. Totally agree with that. Um, but for Inuyasha's brother in the anime, the Shomaru, ends up
Yeah, I know this.
falling in love with and having a relationship with, yeah,
Yeah,
with like the little girl in season one, the little girl who meets him, who he like acts, who he saves, and then he actually develops a fondness for her, which I kind of initially interpreted that fondness as more of like a big brother or
yeah,
father
exactly.
sort of relationship. But fast forward in the series, yeah, exactly. Fast forward the series, and this young woman, or this little girl who's now a young woman, is having a relationship with Sesshomaru, and they have kids, and it is just so weird
It's
and
so
creepy.
weird.
Not just because of not just because of the age difference, but the fact that you raised her, like,
Exactly.
like you were like a
Exactly.
Right.
maternal figure.
The unfortunate thing about it is that it actually makes sense when you consider the time period. That's the real unfortunate part of it, is that
Ew, I can see that.
it's disgusting, but for that time period, it's probably real accurate.
Because
Yeah.
it's like, what was with older anime and either doing that or having like an incest subplot? Like, my mind harkens back to Vampire Knight specifically. The whole thing with
As much as I hate to say it, I'm certain plenty of men did it, but it was a lot of the female mangaka that were doing the incest stuff for some reason. I don't know why.
like
What was in the water in Japan in the
clam.
80s?
I'm saying.
Oh, I feel like in Japan they have a different relationship with, like, segs. I'll say, I don't know if like I can say the actual word on here. I feel like maybe, but I feel like they have a different relationship with segs than other countries do, and I think maybe to a certain extent it's more like it's I don't want to use the word suppressed because that feels like too strong of a word, but in the US, seeing a couple like kiss or even do like a little bit more on the big screen is not super taboo, but in Japan I feel like it's different, right? Even seeing a couple kiss is like a big deal, just like in Korean dramas. Seeing the couple kiss, that's like a huge thing. And so for those reasons, I think just like, again, I don't want to use the word suppressed, but that's the word that keeps coming to my mind. It's kind of, I'd say sex is kind of shelved as a topic there. And I think it's mostly viewed as something to create children. And maybe that, limitation comes through in anime.
Mm-hmm.
To get into a kind of like good example of how some of this stuff is done in anime, let's talk about Dan before we get on to the really big thing that we've been talking around, because we've been recording for a while, because there's been a lot of technical difficulties. To give a little peek behind the curtain for the people listening who are not experiencing them, because I'll edit around it. But we've been recording much longer than we intended to. It is almost an hour past when we were supposed to stop. So yeah, Dan. The season ended. Um, have you both finished it? I know I did.
I did.
It's okay.
I'm nefarious. I know.
I finished it.
Because, well, where did you leave off, Aiara?
Like literally the episode before the last one.
Okay, so we can
I
talk
just haven't
about
had time to watch it.
we can talk about the mech. Okay, as long as we can just talk about the existence of
Yeah.
the mech, that's fine. Um, but
Yeah.
of course, spoilers for Dan if that wasn't clear. Um, but I've talked to you both, individually, and we've even alluded to it in this episode, um, about how Dan tends to avoid being super pervy. Except that Natasha reminded me that in the first episode, it was as pervy gets, but I forgot because they never do it again, weirdly enough. Like that first episode is very pervy, but then it dies down significantly after that. And it never really gets anywhere near that bad. Again, the closest we get is the episode with the Loch Ness Monster where they all get naked. But I mentioned to both you guys how in that episode, they almost go out of their way to avoid leering at the girls once they take their clothes off underwater so that they can move faster. And they don't get completely naked. I think Okaroon, I think he's completely naked for, some comedic related reason that happens, um which kind of flips the usual of what happens on its head. And when they get naked, they still have their undergarments on. They don't try and like get weird about it and like zoom in on them, and there's a lot of really fast action that happens that kind of like prevents that from being seen to begin with. And then a sex joke happens where now Okaroon's completely naked in the hallway. um Momo is half naked in the hallway, and then all of their classmates are watching them, and it's done for that specific joke, and then they move on. And that's how, after that first episode, a lot of that's treated in the show, and I like that. I like that they're not over sexualizing the children, and they're not telling those type of jokes like a lot. They do it every now and again. You get a little ha ha hee hee, and then they move on. Um, and that's great to me. Dan has become like the gold standard of how teenagers should be depicted and treated in anime, in terms of the writing as well as not being weird and not being creepy.
I
So
really.
oh no,
Oh,
you
go
go
ahead.
ahead,
No,
A.
you go ahead. I didn't finish. I didn't finish it, so I think you go ahead. You have better thoughts than I do.
So me and Dijon talked about this at work a little bit, as they said. So some of this might be redundant, but um, yeah, I do think that there are definitely some scenes or episodes in Down where we're like, okay, that was an interesting choice. But when you look at it a bit deeper, you can at least say it's not. It doesn't seem like those scenes are meant to come off as like arousing,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're not fan service basically. If anything, I would say that I think Don does lean into that awkwardness that comes with like youth basically, and the first time you're falling in love and like hormones
Right.
and your first crush and that sort of thing. So I think it leans more into that because realistically for most of us in like middle school or high school, what's our worst nightmare? Yeah, somehow showing up to school naked in front of our crush. Like I think I can see where they were going with that. Um, and even season 2, episode 1, which is the one that I was talking to Dijon about, where Momo is like in the sauna, and then there's these like creepy men. Um, that one was initially like a bit hard for me, but when I went back and I like kind of rewatched the episode, um I think the most difficult part was not the scene itself, but the fact that it was never addressed. It was just kind of like, so we're just gonna pretend you all weren't being like creepy at the sauna with me. Like Momo shows back up to the house and everything, and it's never really discussed or brought up. And it does kind of live in this gray area of like, were they just trying to capture her? Because we eventually learned that these are like kind of the villain, spoiler, I guess. Or was it more nefarious? Was it more like sexual actually? And it kind of lives in that weird gray area. So sorry. So overall, I think Don like handles those scenes pretty well. Again, primarily because it's not supposed to be like arousing or anything. If anything, it's like supposed to be awkward or maybe like creepy sometimes. But that one scene did have me like just pausing, like, what was the intent with that, and
Yeah,
why are we not discussing it?
like
Mm.
we like when the season first, not even when the season first started airing, at the end of the last season, I brought it up as well. I was like, I talked to Aiara and I was like, that was weird, wasn't it? Why'd they do that? I feel like that was unnecessary. And then I thought about it more. I was like, I feel like
Right.
sometimes, especially since it was revealed that those are like the villains of that first half of the season, that like that, like you said, it wasn't done with the intention of like arousal. It was done to be like, no, these guys are bad people. And I think it was what you think it was. It was meant to be a really bad situation that Momo was put in that she was luckily able to fight out of. And then later on, you're right. I don't remember exactly what happens. Like, but they don't necessarily she doesn't necessarily mention it. But at the same time, I think nobody was there for her to mention it too. And I think that's why she didn't mention it, because everybody that was there either knew that it happened or were also bad people. I think if Okarun and the other guy, I forget his name at the moment, Gigi, were there, maybe she would have been like, those are the guys from Asana that tried to assault me. But because it was just her and they were, I forget what they were in that moment, but they were somewhere else, that it wasn't brought up. And instead, they just continued to be creepy and she had to beat them up again. Because yeah, I think that moment was meant to just be like, these are bad people. Like that moment was just meant to make it clear that the town's creepy. There's creepy people in the town, and that these are bad people. But also, just speaking of the town, real quick, not to completely leave that conversation, but it felt like everybody in the town was creepy. But then at the end of that arc,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of normal people in the town, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I thought that everybody in the town was weird, but it was just that family, I guess. And I need to rewatch that last episode of season one to see if all of the people that they were showing in that scene when they were walking up the steps were specifically people from that family. Because they made it seem like it was everyone, which I think was the intention, to try and make you think the town's creepy, but maybe it wasn't the town, it was just that family specifically. Well, it was very clearly it was just that family, but the misdirect ended up being more confusing than a misdirect, I think, for me. When it turned out that it's just a normal town.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that part was confusing because there wasn't any payoff for it other than those people. I don't remember what their I don't think they died, but something they got messed up at some point. And I think the ending is supposed to be these guys suck and they get their ass beat because they suck. And that was kind of supposed to be the bad thing that happened to them, but it felt like it didn't feel fully satisfying that happened, and then that was the result, and then that's the end of it. Like there was no like truly satisfying moment of them like hanging a hat on it and being like calling out what they did, and then them getting beat up because of that. So it felt weird that it wasn't really acknowledged that it happened.
I was going to say, yeah, exactly. And, maybe like, I guess giving the creators, some credit. Maybe they kind of were trying to make some social commentary point. I don't know, but maybe they were trying to make the point that, when these things happen, they aren't, they victims don't usually bring it up, right? For fear of like retribution sometimes, or being judged by society. And so maybe Momo staying quiet about it was her just kind of was a commentary on the fact that women do experience harassment every day, uh, but it becomes so normalized that it's kind of like, oh, it's just a Tuesday, right?
It also
So
could be
maybe that's also a stretch. Yeah.
it could be that, but more so in the sense that it's so normal that the writer didn't even think to address it further. Because the way that they spoke about it definitely makes it, I think, kind of clear that that is unfortunately a real thing that happened specifically at saunas in Japan, and that they were trying to yeah, kind of use it as a way to show that these guys are bad. Like once again, I feel like for me, what it felt weird initially, and it still does to an extent, is that initially to me it felt like they were trying to play it off as a joke, and now looking back on it, and like I hope that wasn't the case, and I like to assume that it wasn't meant to be funny, like it was meant to be weird. Like the intention was that this is weird, not that, oh, funny joke, these guys are being weird. And instead it's meant to be like, no, she's in a serious situation, she needs to get out, and that's meant to accentuate the creepiness of the town, less so comedy, because it's a comedy series. So when something like that happens in this series, it feels like, are they trying to be funny? Like, why are they? That's why I think that's another big reason why it feels out of place, because it was such a serious and unfortunately realistic thing put into this comedy series. Though granted, they've done that before with Turbo Granny, and the idea that her whole thing is that she kind of is a vengeful spirit against women who have been assaulted in that area that she was in. So it's not like this
Mm.
isn't the first time that they've
Mm.
actually touched on that specifically, which is women being assaulted. So in that sense, like thinking about that, this is my first time thinking about that. It makes me want to give the writer a bit more of a benefit of the doubt, knowing that he wrote that moment, that maybe that was his
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah. No, I
Mm.
think I think that makes sense. And if correct me if I'm wrong, but Don to Don is like a co-written series, so it's like a man and a woman, right? I believe. I think it is. Um, and so maybe if it is, again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it is. Um, I think that having a woman co-writer probably adds to some of the nuance that isn't Don to Don when it comes to like men and women interacting with one another, these like uncomfortable scenes and situations. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think it could go either way. We're not in the creators' heads, right? But I do at least like the fact that it's bringing up conversations like this and that people are putting out like, that scene made me think at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I guess just talking about the season as a whole. Like, what did you guys think? Like, how did you like this season in comparison to the first? I know, Nat, you said that you had some very specific opinions about that comparison.
Yes. So I preferred season one over season two. And perhaps that's not exactly surprising because I feel like the beginning of a story is kind of very often the best part, right? Um I think the reason I really preferred season one over season two is like I feel like with season two it was it was maybe like a bit more slow paced, but I feel like there was so much world building and like character development that happened in season one. I expected season two to kind of like be a bit more rapid fire, right? I expected like, okay, we have our main cast here. Um, we they have their powers and whatnot. So okay, let's just get into the action. Like what's happening next? And in season two, I didn't really get that. In season two, it kind of felt like season one part two almost, where
Well,
there
that's
was still
exactly what it
like
is.
this well,
Because
yeah, you know
yeah,
what I mean.
anime seasons are
Yeah.
essentially split into two and released separately nowadays. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, we've talked about this several times on the podcast, me and Aiara, about how season two of Dan to Dan is just it's just a continuation of season one. So I mean, really, if you think about it from that point of view, this is just season one part two, and next season maybe you'll get what you're looking for, especially since they did also introduce what feels like is the final main cast member. And now from here, now that we have
Okay.
everyone, you might now be getting the rapid fire, you know, every couple episodes is a different arc, them dealing with a different monster type thing. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no. You're listen. You're totally fair. Okay. So that makes more sense then. Again, I also don't read the manga, right? I'm mostly in anime, so I'm only coming from that perspective. But that was one of my main criticisms about season two. I did really like the what is it? Gigi's like spirit is called like One Eye or something.
The
What's it
Evil
called?
Eye.
What's the monster called? Evil Eye. Evil Eye.
Mm.
I remember that because I was playing Hades 2 last night, and one of the keepsakes is called the Evil Eye.
I really like Evil Eye. I particularly like the episode where they're trying to, like exercise Evil Eye out of Gigi, and they have to bring in that rock band.
With
I thought I thought that was
the lead
a
singer
great
for that
episode.
is the lead singer
But
from
I
an
do.
actual band called Dragon Force, and I was like, that's cool. They brought him in for that.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Yeah, so that was one of my favorite episodes. That being said, I do feel like the Evil Eye. I feel like the Evil Eye thing, particularly like the hot water, cold water. I was like, oh man, we got to figure this out. Like that went on for a little bit too long for my taste, and I kind of got tired of Evil Eye just like freaking out and exploding, uh, sometimes. But overall, like I enjoyed the season. Again, my main criticism is like I just wanted more because I felt like okay, we have the foundation, let's kind of go. But as you both are saying, it's not so much a season two, but just like the other half of season one. So that's probably why I didn't get that action that I was looking for.
But yeah, any thoughts on the season so far? I know you're one episode from finishing it, but especially if you have any thoughts on the
Just
the new character, the one that was introduced, towards the end. I forget his name.
I think he's neat, but I want to learn. I forget his name also. I want to learn a little more about him before I I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with Natasha in the way that like the Evil Eye arc went on for way too. Yeah, I think it's hilarious, and I love the design for the Evil Eye. But I'm like the whole time I was watching it, I'm like, okay, okay, we get it. Okay, like, and I think a big part of that also is because Ida's arc didn't go on for nearly that long. So I expected it to be that kind of the same level, but it wasn't. And I'm like, okay. It kind of overstayed its welcome, which is unfortunate
Yeah,
because
especially because they tied it
I think
in
GG is cool.
with another arc, and because it felt like it was extended because the arc from the beginning of the season dealt with the evil eye, and then it continued into
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it. Whereas, like you said, with Aiara, it was like the monster they were dealing with was directly connected to stuff with Aiara, and then that was all. That was her story. It was contained in that arc. Whereas this, they continued that arc
Right.
further from beyond, those episodes. So it felt like it went on too long. But it's also the beginning of the series,
I
and
also
it's also, yeah, thinking about it as part of season, like essentially the end of season one. In reality, does make it a bit easier. Like, okay, I guess this is the end of season one, so next two seasons are technically going to be, season two.
I was also going to say, I think season one, we all know the episode where it gets into like the background of like Ida's spirit creature. I don't I guess spirit monster, spirit creature, whatever. The like the dancer and the mom and like what happened to her daughter and all that stuff, which is one of the most like gut wrenching episodes of the entire season one,
Mm-hmm.
and probably like just a very emotional
Oh yeah,
episode for
that's
like
a
anime overall.
that's another episode
I
where this writer does a really good job, like kind of showing like the
Mhm.
horrors of women in society, which is like a weird through line in this show.
Yeah, yeah, it was it was a hard episode to watch, and I was definitely one of
Mm-hmm.
those folks that I was like googling like, well, does her daughter make it out alive? I'm just like, oh god, like holding. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm holding on to hope. We know how that goes, but I think in season two they were trying to do that with the evil eye when they showed his background, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
showed like the little boy dancing and that sort of thing, and it did not hit the same. It did not give me
Yeah.
that emotional impact, even though the story is tragic, but it it did not leave me gasping and like holding on, like hugging myself as I watched the episode the uh the way the episode I mentioned for season one did, and I'm not sure why that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I'm trying to remember like was that the entire episode? Because I think that's the big difference. Also, the episode they did it with Ira was like this very like it was like an art piece. It was like they were going out of their way to have it be extremely different from the rest of the show. Like they were doing a bunch of really weird
Mm-hmm.
and interesting techniques in that show that they don't ever do again. Like that episode was like they went out of their way to make it special. Whereas with this one, it was a
Right.
very basic, regular anime flashback type thing. And I think that might be the major thing is that they didn't really like frame it in a way that would make you care about that more as much as you did the backstory with the Silky.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also wonder if it's like t- tell me, I'm trying to remember, but season two, and I should remember because I just finished watching it, but when they have the episode where they go into the Evil Eye's backstory, it's like when the Evil Eye was a human, I don't think they give extra context into why he was being mistreated. Am I misremembering
It was
maybe?
because he was being sacrificed so that the mountain god wouldn't erupt the volcano.
Okay, so they do go into it, and I just completely forgot. But yeah, it did not emotionally hit for me the way that other episode from season one did, and yeah, I think what you said, Dijon, also makes sense. Like the art style was probably part of it, and also the score they used for the like dancing Silky from season one. When that entire backstory is playing out, the music, oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's emotionally heightening.
Yeah,
Whereas with Evil Eye, I just don't really get that. I was just like, okay, we got another flashback of some trauma.
exactly. It was just, yeah, it was a normal anime
For
flashback
sure, for
as opposed
sure.
to the other one made it like a whole like different thing. Whereas like
Cinematic,
this could be a
like,
short film by itself outside of this show, and you would still feel bad. Like without the context of the everything surrounding it with the show,
yeah.
you would still be able to watch that flashback and get just as emotional. And that's what made that work as opposed to the
Yeah.
Evil Eye one, which was kind of just done to explain the Evil Eye. But also, it was a that episode was the beginning of the season was just doing a lot overall because you also had the worm, and then you had the family, and then you had the Evil Eye. It was just a lot. It was just a lot all at once. If they were all separate, if those were all separate things, like the family and the worm were one thing, and then the Evil Eye was another thing where it could get its own attention, then maybe it would have worked better. But they just, shoved it all into one, and that kind of
Yeah.
muddled things up a bit. Moving on to the last big thing we have, and speaking about sad backstories, we're gonna go to Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. Not just sad backstories, but you also know comparing backstories and how some backstories are better than others, and we'll get to that. So we're going to talk about the Infinity Castle. We're going to start just giving our top view thoughts, like no spoilers, and then we'll get into more detail. I'll just start. So I hate to start this way, but I'm going to start with a tiny bit of negativity. I don't like to do that, but this isn't like me saying it's bad or anything. I loved it. It was great. So actually, no, let me not start with negativity. It was good. I liked it. It's Demon Slayer. It's Ufotable. Their animation is gorgeous. The story of Demon Slayer is just a very simple, sweet premise that is just really fun to watch every time, every season, every movie. It's a good time. But this movie was too damn long, and it should have been a season of television. It should have been TV. Because let me tell you something. Around because this movie was 2 hours 35 minutes. If I had to figure out what time it was, around 2 hours, no, 1 hour 30. A brother was falling asleep, not because the movie was bad, not because I didn't like the movie, but because I watched it on a discount Tuesday. But there are only two times for dub on that Tuesday. This was last Tuesday. Because I wasn't going to watch it subbed because I just watching a movie in the theater subbed does not sound like a good time. And I do prefer to watch things dubbed if it's available. I don't mind subbed, but I do prefer dubbed. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch it dubbed. There are only two times. It was either in the middle of the workday, obviously I have to work, can't do that, or 9 o'clock at night. And this is a 2 hour and 35-minute movie. I go to sleep I go to sleep at 12, meaning that 30 minutes after the movie ended was going to be 30 minutes past my bedtime. I was in there sleepy and tired, and I watched what was the equivalent of maybe 3 episodes of TV before I fell asleep, and then woke back up. I wasn't fully asleep. I was in and out of consciousness, and it was specifically. I'll tell you exactly when I fell asleep because I remember it. It was Akaza drops down. Tanjiro yells his name, knocked out, gone, faded. I was in a different dimension. And then I woke up and they're still fighting. I was like, oh shit, this fight is fire. Shout out to Ufotable, back to sleep. Wake up, flashback. Oh shit, that's Channing Tatum voicing the martial arts master. I knew that because I saw a clip that he was voicing a character in the movie, and I kept waiting for his character to show up. And then I heard his voice. I was like, "That's Channing Tatum. That's cool." Fell asleep. Woke back up. They're still fighting, and basically, I was in and out of consciousness towards that last part. And I want to watch it again, but I don't think it's in theaters anymore, or at least not in the theater closest to me. It might be in some other ones. But also, it's probably going to take forever for it to hit digital like it did with the last movie, um, which sucks. Because I want to watch it again, but I want to be able to watch it in the comfort of my own home, where I can turn it off and go to sleep if I want to, and then wake up and finish it the next day. Because I missed a lot of that fight, and that fight was really good every time I was awake to see it. And I missed pieces of the backstory, but I pretty much legitimately, I pretty much was only asleep when they were fighting and was only awake when they were showing the backstory. So I got the backstory.
Hilariously ironic.
Which also I've read the entirety of this manga. There are two things from this movie I do not remember happening. The fight between Zenitsu and his former fellow student, I did not remember that. I almost was convinced that it was filler and that this does not happen in a manga, but it did, which is wild because I did not remember that shit. And then I did not remember Akazu's backstory at all. When it was happening, I was like, damn, I don't remember his backstory being this good. I was watching like, damn, I thought, like, it's funny because, and I hate to jump the gun because a lot of stuff that happened in this movie that I did remember that we'll get to. But like Akaza, let me slow down, okay? Let me slow down. Let me let you guys talk before I start getting into stuff. All I wanted to say is that I like the movie, but it was too long. I would have preferred if this was on Crunchyroll. And I can't wait till it is on Crunchyroll. And I hope that they do what they did with the Mugen Train arc, which is they turned it into an episode, or excuse me, a season of television that they released before the season that came out after Mugen Train. I hope they do that with the next 3 movies because the remainder of this show will just be movies from this point going forward. And I hope that they turn those 3 movies into a single season at some point. But they don't wait till the last movie's out to do that they do it for each movie in between. Because this just wasn't suitable for a theater experience for me. This just wasn't a fun theater experience. That doesn't mean I didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. It didn't feel like it was made for theaters. You can see the episode breaks. You can literally tell where this episode should have ended and we should be getting the ending theme right now. Like you can see it. And that kind of like didn't ruin the experience. It made it harder for me to watch and easy for me to sleep. But one of you guys, please go ahead.
So it's funny that you brought up the whole like preferring subbed over dubbed, because when me and Natasha went to go see it, we went and saw it subbed. So I really liked it. This was like my first kind of foray into Demon Slayer in a long time. Like I had watched it many years ago, didn't watch the Mugen Train arc, I can't lie, which might be kind of bad of me, but like I kind of treated it as a thing of like, oh, this is like that thing that some animes do in the first episode where they like show the end and then you're like, okay, so now how did we get here? And I don't know, it was just a really fun romp, not to get into like anything spoilerly, but it was very long. And like I enjoyed how long it was, but I didn't realize how left this and I'm like, oh my god, it's so late at night. It's nefarious, but I had a good time.
Yeah, don't you not?
Kind of like what you both said. I really enjoyed Infinity Castle movie 1. I do think it was a bit too long. I I'm okay with it being a movie, honestly. I think they could have saved some time if they had like shortened parts of the backstory, like no shade to any of those characters and whatnot. But
It felt
some of
like
that
it was going
backstory,
on
I was like,
forever.
oh, okay.
That first guy,
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah, I felt like I
Like,
was reading the diary of those characters' lives, like from birth to the end, because it was so long. Um, and I also feel like outside of the backstories being long, I also feel like they could have cut the last fight a little bit because it was a point where I was like, just die for crying out loud,
Yeah,
just die, bro.
100%.
Um, so you know, a few things that just could have been cut, but overall it is right, it's Demon Slayer, so we already know the animation is going to be peak, right? The animation was great, the fight scenes were great. I did see it subbed. I actually prefer dubbed. No,
that.
but
If
like,
I would have known, we could have saw.
you wanted to see it subbed, and I was like, well, I want to go see it with them, so
Look, next
I'll
time
go
you
see it
guys want to go
subbed, so
see
it's
an
okay,
anime
but I
movie,
prefer dubbed.
let me know. I'll come too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like
So good.
I don't. I'm one of those people that does not have a preference. Like I like sub and dubs, but I'm like I said, this is my first jump back into Demon Slayer in like many years. And when I watched it for the first time, I watched it subbed. So I'm like, I'm not ready to hear what the dub voices sound like.
Yeah.
And also, Channing Tatum being in it is kind of crazy.
You're not.
I don't think I'm ready for that emotionally.
You're not ready to hear Eren Yeager as Inosuke?
No. frankly. It would have broken my immersion, I fear. And that's a big part of when it comes to like seeing things in theaters, especially like anime movies for subbed, because it's like I want to be immersed. And if this star-studded cast that they hired for this movie has Channing Tatum in it, that breaks my immersion.
I'm curious if you didn't know it was Channing Tatum. If you heard the dub, you'd be able to tell because he is doing a good job.
I would.
I can see what A's saying because you do get used to voice actors' voices, even if they can change it up a bit, and so you can easily recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, the animation was beautiful. the The soundtrack was beautiful. Um, I the soundtrack was beautiful. And I do appreciate any time in a series where the creator is not afraid to kill a few characters. I'm not going to say which characters because I don't want to upset people. Also, this is probably a reason that I love JJK because characters do die.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I appreciate a creator who's willing to kill their characters. And one thing that also I really enjoyed about this film, and I think a lot of people were looking forward to this film, is like Zenitsu. I pronounced that wrong, but Zenitsu fighting, but fighting while awake is such a big deal.
But yeah, let's now that we've gotten those thoughts out of the way, we
Wait,
can
what
get.
happened?
No, I was just agreeing with you. Um, but
Mm.
get now that we got the initial thoughts out of the way, let's just dive into spoilers. Full spoiler alert. We're getting full deep spoilers into the movie. So if you haven't seen it, don't watch this if you care about spoilers. If you don't, feel free to listen. But let's just start with what you were just talking about, the death that I knew was coming because I read the manga, I read the entire manga. It's good. I liked it. And that moment, that moment I was waiting for because I remember going like that moment I was like I know she dies, and I remember it sucking, and I remember her student runs in. Um, I'm going to not say things that I know happens in the future because in my brain there's other things surrounding that moment that I was trying to remember. That I got jogged my memory of when I was hearing other people who read the manga talk about it online. I was like, oh yeah, that does happen later. But like yeah, like I was sitting there like low key the whole time I was watching it. I was the moments that I remember from the manga. I was just watching, thinking about how I remember in the manga. And that moment was great, and immediately that scene alone gave us a new most hateable demon because of course later on we grow to actually kind of like Akaza, but like even before that happens, I feel like this guy upper two becomes the most hated upper demon immediately because he's just annoying and very clearly some type of weird. I hate to say it, but sexual deviant. He's a weirdo, is what I'm trying to say. He's a
Definitely
weirdo.
very weird.
He's a weirdo. And it makes you hate him off rip. How do you guys feel about
And like,
that
I
part?
think for me, yeah, for me, right, I had one favorite Demon Slayer character from what I remembered
Oh, that's
from
hilarious.
my first foray into it years ago. One. It was Shinobu. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm so happy that the beginning of the movie is so Shinobu focused. And then she died. Like, I don't
In like the worst way
know how
possible.
to quantify the amount of grief in that moment. I'm like, there's no way that this is happening to me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a part in the episode in the
I mean, you're
in the
right.
movie where I did start to get a little emotional. I think I slapped A's arm a little bit
You
actually.
did.
I was just like, oh my god, and I will be honest, I was kind of holding on to hope that that character would make it out, and then I
Mm-hmm.
quickly realized like, oh no, I was like, oh, this is not happening, like this is it. But when I tell you that girl fought, like just the amount of strength she put in trying to kill this demon,
Mm-hmm.
even though it did not result in this demon actually dying. I just that did emotionally get me because like she was doing it for her sister, but she's also doing it for her mentees, and she's acknowledging like I'm small, I'm not very physically strong, I cannot decapitate a demon, but this is all I have, and I will do what I can with it. That emotionally got me. Like I'm tearing up now.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, I think I really, really enjoy that. Like, it's like with a lot of anime, when these characters die, it's just like they die and that's it. But, like, she went out fighting. You don't see that, like the struggle very much. A lot of the time, it's like more often than not when characters die in anime, it's like I'm dying in someone else's arms because they found me after. But like, I do like the fact that they like, you know, even to the bitter end, she did not stop trying to cook his ass, and I really, really appreciate that. And I think that kind of, like, instead of it salting the wound in the way of like, oh, she didn't even go out fighting, like it kind of healed it a little bit. Like I wasn't as torn up as I could have been.
Yeah.
But she does go out
I
horrible,
I think
just
also
slowly being absorbed as her student watches, which is so upsetting. It's such an upsetting visual.
yeah, no, I was just about to bring that up. Like, yeah, she goes out fighting, but the way she dies is like it is harsh because she doesn't just die, she has to be absorbed by this like
Right.
monster, and that is like wild.
And then they tried to like,
And
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, um, because we're talking about the emotional impact of that character in the scene, I think her death was more impactful than Rengoku and the Mugen Train movie. Sorry, I'm like no hate to Rengoku, but we did not we did not have enough time, in my opinion, to develop an emotional connection with that character to the point that when he died, I was truly heartbroken. But that one scene with this character in this movie, um, that had more of an emotional impact than Rengoku and the Mugen Train, and I think this movie overall is actually better than Mugen Train.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt, it's better than Mugen Train.
And I think for me, I think something that really kind of pissed me off about that whole thing was that they tried to like mid-fight as she's dying, like they tried to show the demon's backstory to make me feel bad for him. I don't care.
I don't think they were trying to
like
make you feel bad for him.
Every other demon in, I hope not, because like every other demon in Infinity Castle, I'm like, I feel a little, especially that last guy. Like I feel actually, but the first dude, this upper two, man.
Yeah, no, I don't think they were
I
trying
don't
to
even hear that shit.
make you feel bad for him. They were just simply giving you his backstory. Like his backstory, like it like shows even more why he's a bad person. Granted,
Right.
we'll get to this later with Hakaza. I don't want to necessarily get into my thoughts on just the backstories throughout the entire series. I want to save that for when we talk about Hakaza and his backstory. But like, yeah, this moment was great. With Rengoku, I think the reason, like, one, he's a very easily likable character, and we got such little time with him, and he was taken so soon, and that's why that hit so hard for so many people, especially like he's a character that was easily likable, and that if he was around longer, everybody would only grew to love him even more. And then he was taken very quickly, but also had a lot of potential. And I feel like that's why for a lot of people, that hit so hard. And the Shinobu, for me, hits just as hard, not more or less, because we've been with her longer. Whereas Rengoku is instantly more likable, and immediately I'm like, this is one of my favorite characters. Shinobu is a character that I grew to love more and more over time because she had been around the entire time. And then at this very end of the story, she's gone, and that's what made that hit so as hard as Rengoku did for me. Whereas Rengoku was kind of just a big explosion of a moment. This was a big buildup of a moment. But kind of just essentially going to the next episode, which it feels like. Let's talk about Zenitsu and his I don't even know, what do you call him? There's a specific word that I keep trying to look for that this guy is in relation to Zenitsu that I just can't find. His peer, I guess. Even though he doesn't consider him the Bisa.
They use the term co-heir, right?
Yeah,
or
co-heir. I think co-disciple, co-heir that's a good way to put it. This co-heir, did they mention this at the end of at some point in the series? I don't remember, and I hadn't watched it that long ago. But for some reason, I don't remember this guy. This isn't the first time we're hearing about him, is it?
Neither do I.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. I was like, is he mentioned in the manga?
As cool as I'm telling you, I don't remember this guy from the manga at all. He's so. Let's just be real. This guy is forgettable. The fight's great. The moment for Zenetsu was awesome. The guy he was fighting was boring as hell. I could not have cared less about this dude. He's so
Yeah.
forgettable. In years' time, when we're talking about how great Demon Slayer was, we're all gonna be like, oh yeah, Zenetsu did fight that guy. We're gonna be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that dude. Who was that?
I've been rereading the manga from beginning recently. He was mentioned once. At least as far as I've gotten, because I've gotten up to the end train in my manga reread. And he was mentioned one time, briefly, and not even by name, I don't think. So very forgettable.
I think he's one of those characters that honestly I could have done without. And again, you want to cut screen time? That was a way to cut screen time. Like, I enjoy seeing a series in that too? Like, absolutely. Do I wish there was a reason he went into that castle awake, knowing what he had to do, or I should say, not a reason, but a better reason? Yeah, I feel like they could have been a bit more creative.
They could have set
Like
it up
even the
better.
whole like, oh, yeah, like even though Zenetsu, it's like Zenetsu only knows uh the style one and his co-heir knows all the other styles. I was like, really, y'all? Like we could have come up with anything else. This is it. So it was kind of boring and lackluster for me. Not Zenetsu. I don't mind the character. I know he gets some hate online, but just for such a big moment for him, they could have done more.
For sure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's just not much to say there, so we can very easily breeze past that. And the third big fight of the movie, even though one of them technically didn't finish, um, we have Akaza versus Giyu and Tanjiro, and awesome fight for as much of it as I saw. I might have to, through means, watch that fight. I might I'm sure I can find somebody who somehow got access to it and cut out the backstory and it's just the fight. I'm sure I can find that somewhere. But yeah, let's just jump into the backstory, because as much as the fight, as great as the fight is, all we can say about that is good animation, ufotable good. There's not a lot we can necessarily say about the fight itself, unless I'm wrong. You guys want to prove me wrong. We could talk about how Tanjiro got into his backstory, remembering stuff with his dad, which I think that's always funny when it happens in an anime, and it happens in Demon Slayer more than anything, where a character remembers this really tiny specific detail from a long time ago that all of a sudden this is the moment they decided to remember it of the other 1,000 times they could have. And this is the moment they remember and unlock a technique. It's hilarious when it happens. But at the same time, I love it. Yeah, that's that happened, and then Giyu unlocked his mark, his Demon Slayer mark, which boosted his power and really had him holding his own with Akaza. But Akaza's backstory and the backstories of demons in general, tell me if you have one that made you feel differently. But I think that this is the first demon backstory that where you actually feel for the demon. I could not have cared less about almost every other demon backstory, because more often than not, it's you get it's either it pales, the backstory of how they became a bad person pales in comparison to the bad things that they did, or they were already kind of a bad person and just became worse. That's how a lot of the demon backstories tend to go. They just don't balance out. Akaza was actually a decent person. And then when he became a demon, he became a bad person only because he lost his memories. And you could argue that if he had his memories when he became a demon, either he wouldn't have become a demon because he wouldn't have wanted to, so it just wouldn't have worked, or he would have immediately killed himself. It feels that way. It feels like, no, Akaza was actually a decent dude who just, had a rough time in life and went through a lot of bad stuff. And then, he didn't beg to be a demon. He kind of just became a demon on accident because he swung on the wrong person, which is really funny.
Right. Wrong place, wrong time.
Me and A kind of talked about this already. you know, the backstory and stuff a little too long, yada yada. We all agreed on that and everything. What I will say about Okaza is he is a product of the system. Okay,
He
Yes.
that's a
is.
critique on capitalism. He's a product of the system. Like when they were going into his backstory, I'm like, oh, you can't afford medicine for your ailing father, so you go out and commit crimes. That's, I mean, like, listen, I don't want to get political, but realistically, that's like capitalism.
Oh yeah.
That is why people go out and like commit crimes. No one wakes up one day and decides they want to be a criminal. So one reason I did enjoy his backstory, despite it, taking up a lot of screen time, was just how relatable it is to the real world where yeah, people can't afford their diabetes medication, people can't afford surgeries that they need, kids have to work jobs so they can help their parents who are disabled or ill or just aren't bringing in enough income. His backstory was very relatable, and
Mm-hmm.
across the board, among certain communities it's higher, but um there has been an increase, oh gosh, and like self unaliving across the board in many communities. And so when his father did that, it's like, yeah, because it's just Akaza's backstory was so relatable to the real world, and it's so relatable to like what's happening in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, for those reasons, I did feel for him more than like some of the other demon backstories, like you had mentioned, like the brother and sister. I was like, boo hoo. Okay, I felt very little for them, to be quite honest. So I just had to step in and defend the guy for a minute. He did need to die. He had to go. Okay, but he was a product of the system.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Now, it's interesting that you bring up that point, Deshaun, of like, this was the first demon like backstory that you felt bad for. This, it was at first, and then I started reading the manga again. I have to say that the drummer demon from like the probably like the very beginning, like the one
Yeah,
where
that
they
was
were
like
in the
that
house,
was Loki first season, I think.
and yeah,
Mhm.
that one where it's like that constantly being told that like he's not good enough. I did feel for that. I felt for that like very deeply. But not nearly as much as I did for Akaza in this moment. Like, yeah, being having someone like a perpetual hater, one thing, but like being a product of the system is like a whole different ballpark. And it's like, well, I
Mhm.
wouldn't call that drummer demon justified. Like, you're crashing out on the wrong people. Like this, I would almost call his actions justified. Almost.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I feel like I said, Akazu had become the most hated demon after he killed Rengoku. But once you get his backstory and realize, oh wait, he wouldn't have been like this if he had the choice. But also that other demon just being such a bad person and being such a weirdo that he easily just tops the list because he sucks. Arguably Michael
Yeah.
Jackson's number one because he's the reason for all of this.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, Kaza just it's easy to be like, oh okay, this guy actually he's not a bad person. But yeah, part of the reason I fell asleep is because every time I woke up, they were still fighting. I'm like, at a certain point, the fight's got to end. Like, it's good, but man, please end the fight, die. Like, I get what they're going for. Like, yeah, his will is so strong, but like, I feel like you proved your point. At his will strong, we get it. End the fight. Just get it over with. But let's talk about continuing on
Like
the
when
backstory.
he got
Go ahead.
back up, no head, I was like, there's no way. There's no way that this is happening right now. Like, I get like the power of will thing is supposed to be like a thing in an anime, but like this overstayed its welcome just a smidge.
Especially since
Yeah.
what's his
No,
name?
I mean, again, we watched it together, so.
Especially since Kibutsuji is supposed to be the only demon that can survive getting his head cut off. Having this guy start to survive getting his head cut off is like, okay, stop this. Um, but like, yeah, the stuff with like Akaza
Madness.
eventually, finding a new family and then like starting to like build a good life and then all of that to be ended by these other jealous students. Again, I was partly asleep on this part, so correct me if I'm wrong, who poisoned them is just so sad. And then he just goes and absolutely demolishes them
Mm-hmm.
all. And it was so violent. Talking about like shonen anime that like borderline on sating. This was so violent. This is like one of the most violent shonen anime I've ever watched, up there with like Jujutsu Kaisen. Like the violence in this is crazy. And he tore them apart as a person. He was not a demon. He did that as a man. He did absolutely destroyed them. It was very like borderline disturbing. And I'm not a squeamish person, but I was like, God damn. I feel like for me, context surrounding gore is what makes it like whether or not it bothers me. And I feel like the context surrounding that gore like made it bother me a little bit. But yeah, that made the moment towards the very end, where he finally is reunited with her, just hit so much harder. Could you guys remind me of her name if you remember it?
I don't.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's
I
understandable.
don't either.
We all only saw
I
it.
agree with what you're saying.
We all only saw it once, so
Yeah.
it's hard to remember all of these, Japanese names that we can barely pronounce.
It is hard to remember all the Hashiras and their names and everything. I agree with what you're saying. He finally got to be with her, which is what he really wanted the entire time. That man, he was just unhealed. He was unhealed. Like that's why he was kirking out the way he was.
He didn't need to be a demon. He needed therapy.
I wanted to get your both your yeah, literally, yeah, honestly, yeah. The demon that oh man, there are so many real world comparisons I can make, but yes, I did want to know both your thoughts on a general critique I have of Demon Slayer. And I am someone who likes Demon Slayer, but one thing I noticed about it is like the demons, particularly the top, the upper level demons, are so OP when compared to the Hashira that it's like when they fight sometimes, even in the show, I'm like, can we even call this fair? Because they're so OP compared to the Hashira.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of the
it's like
that's
it
kind of the
almost makes
point.
it not fun.
I think that makes it. I think that's what makes it fun, because you're watching them have to overcome this like obstacle that's almost insurmountable. Like, and they and then eventually you watch them do it. You watch them, despite everything, defeat Akaza, who is the third strongest one, and now you have the student of one of the Hashira fighting the second strongest one, and you're like, okay, how are they going to do this? How are they going to find their way out of this? And I can't say much more than that. But I guess Aiara, but I can't say much more than that to not spoil anybody else watching or not. So you have to watch these people figure it out. Like, how are they going to get this done? And you also know that anybody can go. Shinobu's dead. Rengoku's dead. Anything can happen to anybody. You know that they have to defeat them for this, series to end, but also anybody can die and you don't know who's going to die. I think that's what makes it so entertaining, is that now that we know death is possible, now that and these people are so much stronger than them, how are they going to do it, and who is going to die in the process? I think that's the exciting part. That's what makes it fun.
That makes sense. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, I was just saying that makes sense also.
Yeah, it definitely does. Yeah.
But if you guys don't have,
I think for me,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I get that, but also to a point. Like, sometimes it's like where I'm at, it's like I hate that I also feel like I'm throwing my head against when it comes to how OP these demons are. It's like sometimes I just want to watch people win without like a whole bunch of tomfoolery and rigmarole. And like, I get it. I get that's kind of the point of it. It's like these are very like insurmountable like enemies. But like, I think because I was raised on shonen where it's like, yes, they win and they just win and that's just how it happens. It's kind of like spoiled me a little bit,
Yeah, this is definitely a series where like every step is meant to be painful. Like, it's not supposed to be easy for any of the characters, and that's just this show.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. But I also agree with what A is saying too. And I mean, I think of shows like, again, because it is one of my favorite anime, so I probably have brought up too many times this episode, but Jujutsu Kaisen, I think, is another show where like you do have like the villain, the villains, like the oh my god, I'm forgetting what they call them, but like the demons in Jujutsu Kaisen, who some of them are definitely like very powerful, but then you have characters like Gojo, who also a bit OP, um, but also Gojo's kind of like the almost symbol of hope for the heroes in that show, right? Because they know like he's strong, and so he can properly like combat and challenge the villains and everything. But at the same time, Gojo's not there all the time, so they have to figure things out by themselves. So you still get to see those characters struggle. Um, you still get to see them. You still get to see them struggle, but struggle in a way that does not feel like long and drawn out and like, wow, this is completely hopeless. And also, there's a point, spoiler for people who are behind the JJK, where Gojo gets captured, and then they have to figure it out that way. So I see, I see what you both are saying. I still like Demon Slayer. I just sometimes like the power difference between the demons and the slayers or the Hashira is so much that it's just like, damn, should y'all just quit? Like,
Right, exactly. Like if it were me, I would not be going through all this. And I guess that's why, like, yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a whole bunch of effort for reward. And I guess that's the, but like on the same token, it does make me, it's like if they got to see it through, I got to see it through, you know?
But it was great
Like,
having you on for this section, Natasha. Um,
for sure.
great discussion. You added so much to it. I'm glad to have had you on. It made this animation portion so much better.
yay, woo-hoo.
It was really fun.
Mm.
But yeah,
Definitely. I would love to be back in the office. I'll see you all in the office so we can always chat anime anytime. Anytime you are in the office.
oh yeah, for sure. Anytime you're watching something, you're like, I gotta get on a podcast. We gotta talk about this. Let me know.